Okay, so that is setting up now and be live in like 2 seconds, I think. Okay, and that's now live. Hello and welcome to this episode of Healthwatch Bury Live. Today, we're live with Ruth from Arthritis Action, who's going to be telling us more about the services and support they offer for people with arthritis. But first, I'm just going to tell you a bit more about Healthwatch Bury. So I'm just going to load up my slides. And hopefully you can see those slides now. I just want to start with our commenting guidelines to make sure everyone can participate today. Make sure that you respect people's boundaries and don't make rude comments today. So this is live on Facebook, but I will be uploading this recording to YouTube afterwards, and we do moderate the comments on YouTube as well. Please don't self-promote or try and sell stuff today. And don't flood the chat, we will get to your question. So just a quick overview of the session today. I'm just going to start with a brief introduction about Healthwatch Bury, if you've not come across this before. And then Ruth has a presentation about Arthritis Action and all the support and resources that they offer. And there is opportunity at the end for a Q&A. So if you have any questions for Ruth, you can pop those in the comments below. So Healthwatch is your local health and social care champion. Our main aim is to improve health and social care services for people who use them. And we cover adult health and social care and children's health care. We listen to your experiences of using health and social care services, and the way we do that is through our surveys, or you can contact us directly by phone or email with your experiences of using health and social care services in Bury. So we do offer support for everyone who lives, works, studies, or volunteers in the Bury area. And we're just here to make sure that those running the services put people at the heart of the care that they are providing. So ways we can support you if you have arthritis: we can signpost you to information and advice about living with arthritis, and we can provide you with support with that. We've also listened to your experiences of using health and care services in Bury. So if you want to contact us, our number is 01612536300. We have a new WhatsApp, and that number is +44 7377 454446. And you can email us info@healthwatchbury.co.uk. And I've put these contact details in the description, so you could just look at that today during the presentation, if you didn't have time to make a note of those just now. So this is our Facebook page. If you haven't liked it yet, please do that. And I will upload this to our YouTube channel afterwards. So now I'm just going to hand you over to Ruth to start their presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to talk on a couple of different topics today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Arthritis Action is, who we are as a charity, what we do, what services we offer. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about what is arthritis and what is self-management, and then go through some of the common forms of self-management that we get the most questions about. So hopefully I can challenge a couple of myths, and then also give some suggestions for things you can be doing at home to manage your arthritis. So to start with, who are we? What are we as a charity? So Arthritis Action is a UK charity giving hands-on practical advice to help combat the pain of arthritis. We have been running for over 75 years. It's actually our 80th anniversary next year. So we're very excited for that, and keep an eye out for special activities celebrating that anniversary. And our aim is to help people with arthritis gain the knowledge and confidence to manage their condition themselves and live life to the full. There is a reason we have the word action in our name. So I wanted to kind of set the scene with the impact that arthritis has. 1 in 6 people in the UK are currently living with arthritis, which is a huge number. And obviously, with that many people being affected by the condition, it's both widespread and affecting people in lots of different ways. So the more we all know about it, whether we are living with arthritis or not, the more we can support our friends, our family, our neighbours, our colleagues to live with that condition themselves. So arthritis is fairly well known about, in that most people know that it can cause swelling and pain and stiffness in the joints. There are different forms of arthritis. So the one that you're probably likely to have heard of is osteoarthritis, sometimes called wear and repair, which mostly affects people over the age of 45, but not exclusively. And then you have inflammatory forms of arthritis, such as rheumatoid arthritis, which can start at any age. Self-management techniques are all about reducing the impact of arthritis in daily life. There is no cure for arthritis. Self-management is not going to cure it, but what it's going to do is, like I said, reduce that impact of arthritis and allow you to live life to the full. So what do we mean by self-management and supported self-management? I've got this nice diagram here to basically explain that. Self-management is all about the physical and mental things you do to look after yourself and your condition day to day. So even if you are seeing a GP or a rheumatologist, a physiotherapist, an osteopath, you might see a podiatrist or an occupational therapist, even if you've got quite a lot of appointments with those healthcare professionals, the majority of the time you're dealing with your condition yourself day to day. So it's all of those things you can be doing to look after yourself. And we very deliberately split things out into the physical and mental aspects, because although there is a lot of overlap and lots of these things could be on both sides, I want to really stress that it's really important to look after the mental side of things as well, because it's one of those elements that's very easy to forget about with a physical condition, that actually it has a big emotional impact, living with pain, living with fatigue, the kind of changing of circumstances and the changing of the way you're doing things can have a really big emotional impact, and it's important not to underestimate that. And it's also important to say that there's lots of really good self-management techniques, such as pacing, such as goal setting, and improving communication, both with your healthcare professionals, but also with your friends and family, that can really help you manage your condition day to day. And we're going to go into some of these in a little bit. So one of the ones we're going to touch on healthy eating and diet, we're going to touch on exercise, and we're going to touch on pain and fatigue management, because those are the ones that we get the most questions about. So we'll go through those knowing that they are kind of top of that list. Like I said, arthritis is not one condition. There are 200 different types of arthritis. They have their own symptoms. They have very different ways of presenting. And lots of you will know people that have arthritis, for example, in different joints in their body. So someone who has arthritis in their hands versus their knees, for example, versus someone who has an inflammatory form of arthritis where the inflammation is more widespread, are going to have very different lives and very different effects from arthritis. So it's really important to say that it's important with self-management to find what works for you. What works for you, what works for your form of arthritis, or where it is in your body, for the symptoms that you experience, but also your conditions of life, for the amount of time you have, for the amount of money and resources and access to those resources, and also for what you've got around you. So self-management is about the best thing for you and your condition and your situation at this time. And that might change over time. You can think about it as a toolbox. Self-management has hundreds and hundreds of tools. Sometimes you're just going to use the spanner for 2 weeks, but it's nice knowing there's a hammer there for if you need that hammer later on. So it's about letting you know a bit more about that range of tools that are available. It's also really important to not feel pressured by other people that you have to use their technique because it's been successful for them. One really fantastic thing is sharing those techniques that have been really helpful. But equally, if it doesn't work for you, and it may not, self-management techniques vary between people. So find the things that work for you and don't feel pressured to try something specifically just because a friend or a neighbour has said it's fantastic. And also set your own pace and your own goals. So think about where you're starting from. And we're going to talk about this in particular with exercise later, but I think one of the really good examples is thinking about, we get to the new year, and lots of people like to set resolutions, think about what they want to change. But if we set such big goals of, I'm going to suddenly eat healthily and exercise 5 times a week and start meditating and become a better person, it's very difficult to make those happen. So you have to think about where you are and set goals that are realistic and achievable for you. So how can Arthritis Action help you? So we have a paid for tier of activities, which I'll talk about first, and then we also have a huge range of free resources. So our membership is, like I said, a range of services, which include subsidised clinical appointments. We have our associated practitioners who are a network of osteopaths and physiotherapists and other practitioners around the country, and we subsidise 2 appointments per year, per membership year. You can also have a nutritional and weight management consultation with a dietitian, and that is something that lots of people find really helpful, that one-on-one conversation with a dietitian about, am I doing things right? Can I be doing anything better? We also have a personalised member pathway, and like I've said about goal setting, that is someone who can help you establish your goals and also work towards them, check in with you and hold you accountable. You get 2 members magazines, and we also have a new service called Arthritis Action Connect, which is a telephone service where you can speak one-to-one with somebody else living with arthritis, and have that one-on-one little bit of support from someone who knows what you're going through. And as I said, we also have a big range of free resources as well. So we run webinars. Our latest one was around pregnancy and parenting with arthritis. We've recently had one on hand therapy, and a really good one that we ran last year was around managing pain in a pandemic. So thinking about pain management with the constraints of lockdown, for example, and lots of things that you could do from home, adapting your pain management kind of techniques. We have an online self-management resource, which is lots of really good videos telling you about different self-management techniques. So we have a video on diet from a dietitian, on pain and exercise from our osteopath, and for example, our rheumatologist talking about what is arthritis and explaining some of the common forms of arthritis, what they look like, what some of the treatment options are. We run support groups, so our Arthritis Action groups are currently all being held online, but you're more than welcome to come and join us on Zoom. Just give us an email and we'll let you know the details to join us. We have regional groups, and then we also have open groups in the evening and also a monthly informal coffee morning. So if you would like to join us, please just let me know. We also have a fantastic new resource, which is our Young Adults Hub. Which is resources specifically designed for younger adults, so age 18 to 35, with topics and tips that might be helpful for people of that age range to deal with their arthritis. And then, like I said, lots of other resources as well in our resource centre, so exercises, recipes, fact sheets, and some signposting directories as well. And if you would like to know more about us on a regular basis, we also have a monthly e-newsletter you can sign up to, and we'll give you all the kind of relevant things coming up in the following month. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about some common forms of self-management. And the way I want to talk about this is kind of in a bit of a dispelling myths way, really, because there are lots of myths and kind of held beliefs about some of these things, which the research has proven isn't true. And there's some updated versions of these. So to start with, I'm going to talk about diet and arthritis, because it's the one thing we get so many questions about. And like I said, we have a dietitian on staff who can provide personalised information for our members, but his job is also to look at the research and provide all of our nutritional information on our website. And the really good news is that actually the messaging around diet and arthritis is really simple. And the message is there are not any particular foods that will make your arthritis worse or better. That the aim is to eat a healthy, balanced diet and stick to a healthy weight for you. And that is a nice, simple message, really. The internet has a lot of conflicting information. It can be really confusing. There's over 6 million results if you search for arthritis and diet, and a lot of that is not necessarily very research-based, and it can be very confusing. So if you are looking for that reliable information, like I said, we have fact sheets and videos and webinars with lots more detail about diet and arthritis. from a credible source, our dietitian. So, one of the things to think about is including plenty of fruit and vegetables in your diet so that you can keep to good health, and also thinking about appropriate portion sizes when we're talking about weight management as well. You've probably seen this nice colourful diagram before, but this kind of gives a bit of a representation of what a healthy diet looks like. So you can see lots of fruit and vegetables, an element of the starchy things, and then some protein, smaller amounts of dairy and alternatives, and then a small amount of oils and spreads. So exercise is the next topic that I want to kind of dig into a little bit. And exercise is a fantastic way to relieve the pain associated with arthritis. There's lots of really good research to say that where you strengthen muscles around an affected joint, there's lots of benefits, which include pain reduction, increased mobility. And also you get things like endorphins released after you exercise that make you feel better. If you are working out with a friend or you're moving around with a friend, you also get that additional social benefit. So there's lots of benefits to it. It's important to say as well that exercise doesn't have to be something, big and scary like going to the gym or running a marathon. It's about all the movement you are doing in your day. So thinking about walking, housework, gardening, all of those things you're doing where you're moving around. And it's also important to say that even a little bit extra is a good thing. So if at the moment you can walk for about 10 minutes in a go, that's fantastic. Think about trying to build up to 12. It doesn't have to be huge, big goals. And also think about exercise you enjoy. If it feels like a chore, you're absolutely not going to want to do it. So find something you love, and whether that is just putting on a playlist or the radio that makes you feel really happy and having a dance around your kitchen once a day, whether it's joining a YouTube or a Zoom exercise class, or something at your local community centre or your local leisure centre, or just doing things on your own. And I'm going to show you some of our exercise resources in a minute that you could try if you're looking for something to do from home. It's also really important to say that some pain after exercise is normal, whether or not you have arthritis. So if you're doing something more intense than usual, or you're doing a new movement, you might feel a little bit sore the day after or the day after that. That's something called delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, and that's very usual. If you do feel any stabbing pain, any consistent pain, or anything that feels very serious, then do stop and go and have a chat to your GP and talk about some other ways you could start moving. But in the main, exercise is a fantastic thing. It's not a quick fix. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to see a benefit, but that benefit is really real, and it can be fantastic. Like I said, it doesn't have to be vigorous. And it doesn't have to be an hour and a half all in one go. You can do exercise in 5-minute, 10-minute chunks once a day or a few times a day. And that will also give you that benefit. So types of exercise. Now, the government guidelines recommend doing some of each of these elements because they are good for you for different reasons. So you've got the aerobic form of exercise, which is anything that gets your heart rate going. And that could be walking upstairs, or just stepping up onto a step and back down again for a few minutes at a time. It could be dancing or swimming or gardening or dusting or hoovering, anything that you feel your heart rate going a little bit faster. And then you also have resistant exercises, which are where you're building your muscles. And that could be using weights. And that could be weights like a formal weight you see in the gym, but it also could be tins of beans or bottles of water. But you can also use your body weight. So, for example, leaning against the wall and just pressing your weight into the wall, balance exercises where you're standing on one leg, even if you're supporting yourself a little bit with your hands, using your body weight to add that resistance. And then you also have flexibility exercises. So that could be stretching, or it could be yoga or Pilates, and things like Tai Chi. And there's lots of versions of these things that are available either in person or online, where they're either seated or they're really easily adapted if, for example, you struggle to get down on the floor, or if you have specific movements that you can't do. And like I said, if you are looking for things you can be doing from home, from a chair, for example, we have this range of chair-based exercises designed by our osteopath, and they are in the main with a chair with little to no equipment, and they're searchable by area of the body. So if, for example, you have arthritis in your hips, you can search by hips and it will give you lots of exercises that are good for strengthening your hips. Likewise, if it's your knees or your ankles, you can search for those as well. And there's also some fantastic exercises for strength and mobility in your hands on there as well. You don't have to do them as fast as the moving images, they're just as an illustration. And where they're available on our website, there's also a written description. So if you are looking at it and going, what actually should I be doing with my foot there? There's a written description that gives you that little bit of extra information. So pain and arthritis is the next topic that I want to talk about, because let's be honest, pain is the thing that most people struggle with when it comes to their arthritis. Pain is a horrible thing. Pain is a horrible experience, and it's one of the things that self-management can be used to manage. Like I said, not necessarily get rid of, but manage. There's lots of negative language associated with pain. We talk about things like slipped discs, we talk about phantom limb pain, all of these things that are actually very scary. And there are a couple of reasons why that can be really unhelpful. And one of them is because fear, anxiety, and anticipation of pain can make our pain worse. So if we are talking about pain in this very negative way, it can actually make the pain feel worse. But also some pain is helpful, not all pain. But if you think about something like, if you touch a hot pan, you immediately pull your hand away because it hurts. That's helpful pain. Where pain becomes unhelpful is where it's long-term and chronic and not indicative of additional damage. And we can become very attuned to pain, so we notice it very well. Our bodies are very good at going, oh, there's that pain again. Then we notice it and we focus on it. And those increased stress levels where we notice the pain and then we are anticipating more pain can again make the pain feel worse. Some of the techniques that can be useful because of this association between fear and anxiety and stress and pain are things like relaxation exercises and breathing exercises. And they can be kind of formal ones. If you think about something like meditation, they're often based around an awareness of the body or an awareness of the breath. But it could also just be sitting and closing your eyes and focusing on your breathing for a couple of minutes. And if you are looking to try out something like that, something like a progressive muscle relaxation or a breathing exercise, again, we've got some audio videos on our website where you can have a go at those and see if they're helpful. It's one of those things where if you notice yourself tensing up and you have a technique where you can go, right, okay, I can feel myself getting stressed. I'm just going to spend 2 minutes now just to relax myself. That can just help for a little bit of management. And finally, with pain, I want to talk a little bit about its association with movement and exercise, so that you can see this diagram down here where if you are in pain, you have a fear of movement, so you move less, and that causes your muscles to weaken, which make it harder to move, and then you experience more pain, which leads to more fear of movement. So you can see that we get into this downward spiral really of pain and lack of movement, and where really we can start to challenge that downward spiral is that fear of movement. So we can build our confidence with movement, and like I said, building up slowly and appropriately in a way that doesn't make you feel stressed. You can overcome that fear, so you're moving more, whatever more means for you. Strengthen those muscles, which will result in less pain, so you can move more. And then again, it builds that confidence, overcomes that fear, and you start reversing that downward spiral and you start moving upwards. And like I said, it's going to look different for everybody. And the speed is going to be different for everybody, but that is a really good way of tackling that fear. And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit as well about mental health and arthritis. I mentioned at the beginning, the emotional toll that living in pain, that living with fatigue and adjusting to a long-term condition can have for people. And it's just really important to say that it's just as important to look after your mental health as it is to look after your physical health. And it can be really difficult to stay positive when you're experiencing pain. It's also very common to have feelings of isolation. Perhaps if you've been recently diagnosed and you don't have any friends that have arthritis and are struggling to kind of understand what you're going through, or if you're having to change the activities you're doing to other things that your friends are less keen on and you're feeling left out, it's very easy then to start feeling really isolated. And some things you can be doing are those, changing the communication and saying, actually, look, that walk is too far for me, but could we do this other walk where there's a cafe halfway around, and I'll stop there and you can do the rest of the walk, and then you can meet at the end and we'll have coffee. Or just explaining to people that actually some days are bad days and some days are good, but please carry on inviting me. I'd love to be invited. But also, if you are looking for mental health support, obviously Healthwatch is a great way of getting some signposting to local resources. We also have a mental health directory. And also, if you are really struggling and you're dealing with low mood, if you're struggling to get out of bed, if you're having feelings of hopelessness for a few weeks, please do go and see your GP or use your local referral service to get some support, because just because you're in pain doesn't mean you also have to have those feelings. Fabulous. So that's the end of the presentation. I will say as well, I'm not a medical professional, so I can answer questions about our service and about self-management in general, but I won't be able to answer any medical questions. Lovely. So I'll pass back over and see if we have any questions that have come in.
Thank you, Ruth, for that presentation. Such a lot of good information there. So I did make a note of a few questions. So what resources are included on your youth hub, and what tips do you have for like young people with arthritis?
So we've got a huge range of things on there. So everything from studying with arthritis, which talks about things like techniques to manage if you are studying at college or university. Also talking about socializing with arthritis. So how to cope if you are going out to the pub or the cinema or other social activities with your friends. Things about how to integrate things like pacing and also those communication skills in there. Some stuff about how to talk to your friends about your diagnosis, and then a huge range of other bits and bobs as well. And it's not all necessarily just relevant for younger adults as well. It's also about if it's the kind of activities you're up to, fantastic. There's lots of tips that can be shared across ages as well.
Thank you. That sounds like a really great resource for young people. So second question I have, what's the best place to get mobility aids or kitchen aids for people who are, having difficulties with, cooking and preparing meals, or just generally getting out and about with arthritis?
So there's a huge range of things out there. And we've, at our Arthritis Action groups, we've had discussions around this actually, where we've done kind of show and tells, which is much easier on Zoom because people can bring everything and not have to physically bring it along to a meeting. So we do have a fact sheet with some examples of stuff that's come up during our groups. You can also, if you have referral mechanisms to an occupational therapist, they can be really helpful in terms of looking at the way you're using your home. And also local mobility shops. Most towns will have at least one mobility place that sells things like wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs and rollators, that kind of thing. But they often do have a catalogue with other items, and they can often also talk you through how they work. Because there are places, obviously, just online shops where you can buy things, but it's often difficult to know whether they're right for you and the kind of quality. So also what's great is if you have someone who's got a similar issue to you, asking them and saying, right, okay, what is your best tin opener? Because I know we have a similar problem with arthritis in our wrists. Because if it's your wrist versus your thumb versus your fingers versus your shoulder, it actually might be something slightly different that you need in terms of that aid. But there's lots of stuff out there. There's also lots of stuff that isn't technically an aid, but is fantastically helpful. So things like rug underlay, the kind of anti-slip mats that you can buy in rolls from, pound shops, can be really helpful for things like food preparation. You can put some underneath your chopping board to stop the chopping board from slipping around. You can put it on things like lap trays to put your plate on. You can also use it underneath something that has a tendency to move around a little bit. And then things like filling your kettle with a light plastic jug instead of carrying the whole kettle to the sink. You can do the same for saucepans on the hob. Cooking pasta or cooking vegetables rather than directly in the pan in a sieve or one of these little deep fryer baskets that, again, you can get from the pound shop. So you're not having to carry a big pan of hot water across the kitchen. You lift it out and then you can let the water cool down before you move it. So there's loads and loads and loads of stuff out there, and we've got some resources, and then there's lots of other places you can have a look for that as well.
That all sounds really good. Thank you. The final question I have is, how do people join your online support groups at the moment?
So we've got a calendar of all of our upcoming events on our website, and then you just need to drop us an email. We'll send you the Zoom information. If you are new to Zoom, we can send you our how-to guides, which have got pictures of exactly what it will look like, either on your phone or your tablet or your computer. And also, if you're nervous as well, we can speak to you beforehand, either by email or phone, let you know a little bit what to expect. But the groups are facilitated by members of staff. So we make sure that, if you're new, you can introduce yourself and learn a bit about everybody else. And, if you're quieter and you just want to listen, that's totally fine. Or if you're kind of less confident with Zoom, we'll come to you and ask if you want to contribute. So we try and make sure that they're groups where everybody can take part. But like I said, just drop us an email and we can send you the details and let you know how to join the next one.
And those are free to join, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you'll be starting in-person support groups again in the new year? Is that right?
I hope so. So we'll put all the updated information on our website when we've got news about that, but we will also be continuing with our online groups.
So those are all the questions I had. So thank you for taking part in our live today and sharing some really great information for people with arthritis. So yeah, unless you had any more to share, I'll probably just end the live now.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you. Hope you all have a really nice day. Bye.